Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. I'm Pinky Webb. The Commission on Elections may proclaim today the winners of the senatorial race in the midterm elections. The National Board of Canvassers has yet to finish its official count, with 2 more certificates of canvass from the U.S. and Saudi Arabia waiting to be transmitted. Our Trisha Terada will give us a run-through of what might happen at the PICC in Pasay City.
The proclamation of winning party list bets will not push through this morning. That's because there are still 2 certificates of canvass that the National Board of Canvassers need to look into. These are from the U.S. and Saudi Arabia. The NBOC is set to reconvene at 10 this morning. But if we're going to look at the official results, as of 9 last night, Senator Cynthia Villar is still at number 1, consistently followed by Grace Poe and Bongo. Still in the Magic 12 are Pia Cayetano, Bato de la Rosa, Sonny Angara, Lito Lapid, Aimee Marcos, Francis Tolentino, Coco Pimentel, and Bong Revilla. There's a tight race still for the 12th spot among incumbent senators Nancy Binay, JV Ejercito, and Bam Aquino. But according to COMELEC Director Francis Arabe, there's still a high chance that the proclamation of winning senatorial bets will take place later this afternoon or early this evening as originally planned. We will provide you with more details as soon as we have them.
Trisha Terada there reporting from Pasay City. The Alliance of Concerned Teachers, or ACT party list, kept tabs on the midterm polls. The group tells CNN Philippines it's eyeing to file cases over what it calls massive fraud during the elections.
Hindi pa rin katanggap-tanggap itong nakaraang ating eleksyon. Wala naman kami panawagan ng stop proclamation, kundi kinoconsider ng mga abogado namin yung pagpa-file ng kaso. Dahil nga dun sa matinding fraud. Dapat managot ang dapat managot. Halimbawa yung nag-control nung SD cards natin, Smartmatic, at kung yung mukhang taga-COMELEC pa, yung supplier ng SD cards. Ganun din, yung mga na-involve sa fraud katulad nung PNP at AFP sa electioneering na naganap at nagkaroon pa ng mga disenfranchisement. Malaking pananagutan dito ng COMELEC.
But the COMELEC Citizens Arm Legal Network for Truthful Elections, or LENTE, says there have been no irregularities with its counting so far. LENTE performs manual counting of votes to double-check the official count and identify whether there have been any anomalies in the results.
We're about to finish with 150 ballot boxes audited by our teachers from NCR. And wala pa naman good news is there's nothing unusual so far. We should differentiate between the project management on the part of COMELEC and actual fraud, because some people are equating poor project management, for example, the defective VCMs, to actual fraud. We have to nuance, because hindi naman ibig sabihin may nasirang makina ay may dayan agad.
Senators have agreed to keep Tito Soto as Senate President in the 18th Congress. Soto says the agreement is to keep the tradition of the equity of the incumbent, which means those holding key leadership positions will stay in their post when the new Congress starts in June. Senate Majority Leader Mig Zubiri and Senate President Pro Tempore Ralph Recto are also expected to stay in their posts. Zubiri says some neophyte senators will be given key committee chairmanships. Former PNP Chief Bato de la Rosa will be replacing Senator Ping Lacson as the Public Order Committee chairperson. Lacson will lead the Defense Committee, which will be vacated by outgoing Senator Gringo Honasan.
If you ask the chairman of the Committee on Public Order and Security, pumayag si Senator Ping. He was very gracious. Napaka-gracious na ibigay niya kay Senator-elect Bato de la Rosa.
Zubiri also says former Special Assistant to the President, Bongo, asked to lead the Health Committee, currently being led by Senator JV Ejercito.
He requested in our meeting that he'd like to have the Committee on Health Kasi nga malasakit centers kanya, di ba? All over the Philippines siya nagpasimuno at nanguna dito sa malasakit centers. So he was asking if we get the Committee on Health. So far, wala nag-object naman.
The Senate hoping to pass priority measures with only 9 session days left before the 17th Congress ends. Senators will have to work overtime to pass the bills before some of their colleagues end their term. Our Joyce Ilas tells us more.
The next 3 weeks are going to be busy for the Senate. Senators are hoping to make a last push and pass permanent legislation before the 17th Congress ends in June. Among the measures expected to pass in the next few days is the bill lowering the minimum age of criminal responsibility from 15 to 12 years old.
May pag-asa. Pwede. May pag-asa yan. Sigurado na tatalakayin namin. But if not, then in the 18th Congress, mas malamang.
Senate President Tito Soto admits, though, the Senate is pressed for time. To ensure it will become a law, they need to speed up the discussions or have the House of Representatives adopt their version to do away with the bicameral conference committee meeting. For Soto, top priority is the anti-terrorism bill or the amendments to the Human Security Act. The bill seeks to redefine what terrorist acts are and penalize individuals involved even at the initial stages of plotting terrorist acts. It also seeks to detain a person suspected of committing terrorist acts for 14 days, even if no case has been filed. Soto also hopes the Senate would be able to pass the bill amending the Public Services Act. The bill seeks to ease foreign ownership limits to telecommunications and transport sectors.
It can address the issues on water, air transport, transportation, power. Sapol lahat no sa Public Service Act yan, which is very old.
Soto hopes the Senate would be able to pass the Security of Tenure Bill or the End-Endo Bill, which was already certified as urgent by President Duterte. The bill seeks to penalize labor-only contracting. He says another priority is the Medical Scholarships Bill, which seeks to provide free medical education to Filipinos, provided that they will practice their profession in the country for 5 years after graduating. The Senate President also hopes to pass the right-sizing of the National Government Bill, which seeks to reorganize and abolish redundant or irrelevant agencies in government. Joyce Ilas, CNN Philippines.
We'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. The Commission on Elections closely studying the substitution bid of National Youth Commission Chairperson Ronald Cardema. Cardema is looking to replace his wife as first nominee of the Duterte Youth Party list. His age at 33 became an issue because the party list law limits a youth sector representative to no more than 30 years old. COMELEC spokesperson James Jimenez says the COMELEC and bank is taking time to decide because of legal issues.
These are the substantive issues that are still being discussed. First of all, the age. I don't know that we know his age for certain, but I'm sure someone has already filed that. Pero kasi, again, this is probably a failing on my part. I don't know exactly how old the guy is. And second, as to the timing, there are some overlapping rules that would impact that. Kaya pinag-aaralan niya ng mabuti sa ngayon. And just like the rest of you, I am also awaiting the word of the bank on that.
Regardless of the COMELEC decision, Malacanang says Cardema is deemed resigned from his post. Presidential spokesman Sal Panelo says the petition clearly indicates Cardema no longer wants to serve in the executive branch. The Youth Commission is under the office of the President.
As far as we're concerned, he showed his disinterest in further serving the executive branch, then who are we to stop him?
In his latest statement, Cardema assures the public there is no rigging of votes. The application for substitution was filed before Election Day and that there is no age limit for the youth and professionals sectors. We now speak to former Congressman Neri Colmenares. Sir, good morning to you. Welcome to the show.
Hi, good morning, Pinky. Good morning to your viewers.
So, Bayan Muna is making it, sir, to the party list group. Are you number 2 right now?
Yes, Bayan Muda garnered more than 1 million votes, so we're number 2. We were number 1 all throughout the campaign period, but it got trimmed down, and in the end, we landed at number 2. But we're going to get 3 seats.
How many representatives are you entitled to with your 1 million votes, sir?
Yes, based on our calculation, we are going to, of course, because we garnered more than 2%, we are assured of 1 seat. And then the additional seats under the Banat formula, we would have additional more than 2 seats, but because of the 3-seat cap, we will have, in our calculations, Pinky, of course, we will have 3 seats.
Mm-hmm. And when would you know the proclamation of the party list groups will happen?
Well, it's supposed to be Sunday, then it became Monday, then I think it's Wednesday. The latest announcement is Wednesday.
Pero posible, sir, mauna mga senators before the party list group. So that's what Comelec is saying.
Yes, I heard it too. Before, I heard that it's going to be simultaneous. Then they explained it as, para isahan na lang. And then they suddenly changed their mind. I don't know why. But they changed their mind, and now it's going to be separate proclamations, I heard.
Congressman, really, I also wanted to get your reaction on this issue on the Duterte Youth Foundation and substitution and the age and, a lot of things are being questioned right now on Ronald Cardema, the NYC chairman, substituting for his wife, and apparently others who withdrew their nomination in the Duterte Youth Party List group, sir. Any reaction on that?
Yes, well, of course, we're opposed to that, not only for legal issues, but even, would you say, for a sense of decency and transparency. You see, Pinky, the party list elections, we always fought for that it's going to be for the marginalized and underrepresented. Unfortunately, a lot of the powerful and the rich managed to get in the party list. That's why we were always demanding for transparency that the names of nominees be listed. What Mr. Cardema did is actually to circumvent that rule. And now, if Comelec will agree to that, then it will be chaos, because now any notorious candidate who thinks he will not get elected will just build a party list, control all the nominees, and people wouldn't even know that this notorious candidate is their congressman that they're voting for. And on the last day or after the elections, we'll just substitute, merely order his nominees and say, you all withdraw and I will be the Congress. That will really circumvent the rule of transparency. So,
but my question, sir.
The Comelec has actually said before that it is important that the names of the nominees be known, because yes, the people are voting also for the nominee, not just the party list.
But is there something illegal about what he's done? If we were to look at some of the reports that have come out, there is talk that he filed after the elections, but he's saying he did not file for substitution after the elections. He filed it before the elections. If it was filed, for the sake of argument, sir, before the elections, would that be legal? Or is that illegal?
Yes, definitely, because no public official can run as a nominee in the party list election. And all throughout the party elections, people were asking him to resign, in fact, during the campaign, but he didn't. And so he was using his position as a public official to campaign for his party list group. And then later on, once they feel that they have the votes, he will just come in. So technically, essentially, he violated the rule that if you're an appointive official, you cannot be a nominee. That's the first.
Because you have to take a leave. You have to resign, rather, from your post.
Yeah, correct. Yes, you have to resign. So it's a scheme. In the end, it will be so all public officials will just build their own party list groups, all the generals and all the colonels and all the secretaries and so on. They will just build their own party list group, and then they will continue to hold their position. and of course use their public office for their party list group, and in the last minute they will just file a substitution.
Yeah, hence
That's the illegality there. Secondly, we also question the integrity of the Duterte Youth as a party list group. So in the end, 5 nominees, you had yourself nominated as the party list group, and in one fell swoop, all of you resigned without explanation. The law says that you must, if you are going to be incapacitated, you're going to file it in writing. A nominee can only withdraw on the grounds of being incapacitated. And also the law requires that it be in writing. How can anyone believe that all 5 nominees became suddenly incapacitated on the last day of the campaign period if he filed it before the elections?
So will you contest this if he is allowed to sit as a representative?
Yes. I don't think the COMELEC will allow him to sit, because that will really be a serious precedent, and that will be chaos in the party list. Because if that decision is to allow him, then in the next election you will see whoever, notorious drug personality, coming in suddenly and becoming a member of Congress on the last day of the campaign period. I don't think. But yes, I think there are already groups that filed opposition to Mr. Cardema's substitution. And it is my belief, Pinky, that there's no way that COMELEC can allow him, because that will really destroy the party list, transparency requirement.
Former Congressman Nery Colmenares, sir, thank you so much for your time. Thank you, sir. We'll be taking a short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. A former senator succeeds in making a comeback at the upper chamber, landing at 4th place with over 19 million votes in the midterm elections. Her priorities are set on ensuring women's rights, like the expanded maternity leave, which will take effect soon. Also, with administration bets dominating the results of the midterm polls, can people expect the Senate to retain its independence? Let's go straight to the source of the story. Senatorial candidate, former Senator Pia Cayetano. Senator, good to have you and good to see you again.
Yes, I'm happy to be here, Pinky.
So, number 4, 19.7 in the COMELEC count. Of course, congratulations are in order.
Thank you.
Did you think you were going to fare this high?
Well, the surveys prior to the actual campaign actually had me at 3, statistically tied for 2. So I went in feeling strong, but then if you look at the actual expenses, we spent so much less than everyone else. So my rank was slipping. But well, I work hard as I try to remind people, I use all the strength I have as an athlete, on a bike, running, walking, wherever. So I'm happy. I'm happy it finished this way.
As a mother, as an athlete, and as a women's advocate, as a lawyer as well.
I bring it all out.
Nilabas mo na lahat.
Nilalabas ko talaga lahat.
But what was the strategy in the campaign? Kasi sabi mo you didn't spend, you weren't one of the biggest spenders.
Yeah.
So what was your strategy?
Well, number 1, I do have name recall. And people sing my song, Pia Cayetano. It's easy to remember. That is a genuine blessing that I have a song that's easy to remember.
But when was that song?
I used it in my very first campaign. Nagbabago lang ng konti yung tempo, but it's pretty much the same. Pia Cayetano.
Not in 2004, because you first ran in 2004.
Because my dad used it in 1998. Compañero.
Aha, tapos pinalitan mo ng Pia.
Pinalitan lang ng Pia Cayetano, pero parang mas nag-click na sa akin talaga.
Nakalimutan na, okay.
And for some reason, it clicks with kids who are not voters. So, I have parents sending me their 3-year-olds singing my jingle. But
ang laking tulong nun, no, Senator?
I'd like to believe, because it's easy for people to remember me. So when I can't be somewhere and then may mag-volunteer na, where parang jeep, tas umiikot na may song mo lang na kumakanta, that helps. But everywhere I go, I really try to, if the time limit is 2 minutes or 3 minutes, I try to congest into that amount of time where my passion comes from. So I have to say, I'm a lawyer, that helps me make the laws. That's the skill. But it comes from the heart. Me as a mother, as a working mother, as a breastfeeding mother, as a mother who lost a child, as a mother as natural born and adopted children. Sinasaksak ko lahat doon because I need people to understand that this is how I will make the laws for you.
But going back, in 2004 was the first time you ran. I
Yeah.
think that was after the passing of your father, no?
Yes, just after his passing.
And you were, forgive me for saying
I was
this,
so
but
nene.
you were 38 years old, and I think you were the youngest
I was 37
senator.
actually. My birthday was swak in the middle of the campaign. I'm like, what am I doing with my life?
At saka you weren't in the public eye. Hindi po kayo kilala
No,
noon.
I was
Oo.
I had no plans. I had no desire in my life to enter politics. None.
So, doon nag-umpisa yon 2004, tapos hanggang 2010, and then 2010 hanggang
ran
2016, and then you went to Congress, and
then
now
I
you're
went to
coming
Congress
back
in 2016. Yeah.
to 2019, and then now.
And that's where I am now.
Yeah. So ngayon kilala ka na at mataas nga yung familiarity and voting for mo. That's why landing you at fourth spot. There's, pag pinag-uusapan si Senator Pia, you talk about, as she mentioned, a mother, a lawyer, an athlete, and you use that in your campaign. Sometime in March.
I tell people that, especially if I'm in areas where naakit ko na yung bundok na to, I've been up this mountain, or I've actually crossed well, not the whole ocean, but I've crossed this part of the ocean to get to that island because I want them to know that my inspiration really comes from them. Like, I climb up mountains and I see the living conditions. I see that there's a elementary school, but there's no high school. I see it with my own eyes. And honestly, they'll really tell me, kayo pa lang ang senador nakaakyat dito. And I know it's true.
All right, we're going to continue our discussion on our Facebook page because we've run out of time. We'd like to thank Senator Pia, pero mag-uusap pa rin po tayo after this. And thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today is senatorial candidate and former Senator Pia Cayetano. During the campaign, at the, hindi naman height, but sa umpisa ng campaign, a month after, you joined the 50-kilometer ultra marathon in Cebu.
Yes.
And hindi ba nasayang yung iyong oras instead of campaigning to actually join something like this?
You asked me earlier what was my strategy, how did I do this? In a way, that is a strategy because you're right. You could put your time and you could be in a place where it's a typical rally and maybe there's 10, 20,000. That race only had 300 women, but that is my crowd. These are the people I work for. These are the people who inspire me. These are the people who will naturally tell stories about me, who will naturally say that we ran with her. This is how strong she is. Fast forward, okay, like a week before the campaign ended, so it was still in the middle of the campaign, I was in Cebu for my last event. And I came early and I hadn't exercised, so I went to the Abellano Stadium and I ran for 20 minutes. And then na-post yun. And then there were people who commented, ay, fake news yan, ay, luma na yan. And then I had all these Cebuanos defend me. Excuse me, tumatakbo talaga yan. Excuse me, she always joins this ultramarathon. We always see her here. She bikes, she runs in Cebu. So the point is, I want people to know who I really am. And yes, I stand by the fact that I'm a runner. I'm a woman who goes out there and runs all night with other women.
And you say all night because for those who might not know, this ultra marathon actually starts, Senator Pia,
at 10 p.m.
and ends at, yung
well,
ending mo.
The ending is 8 a.m. But I finished it before 6 a.m.
Imagine that. That's a marathon. That's a run/walk for what? You did it for 7 hours,
Almost 8
and then, of course,
hours.
that's you
that's my,
doing your thing. So, during the campaign, totoo yung sinabi mo, no, Senator Pia, pwede kang pumunta sa probinsya, have thousands of people, and you can have something like this, which you've done in the past as well.
Yes, because feeling ko naman, pag nagpunta kami sa rally, which I do, and I'll take this opportunity to thank Inday Sara and the President who endorsed us and were there at the rallies, campaigning for us. But I also feel it's important for people to see you in your element, di ba? The rally, nagsispeech ka eh. And of course, I'd like to believe that they see the real me. That's why I share the story of the loss of my son. And I connect that with the reality of the times that we had this measles outbreak. And I would explain to them that, when my son was literally dying, I mean, he was born to die. It's so sad, but that is the truth because yung condition niya, the doctors call it not compatible with life. I mean, how can you tell a mother that her child is not compatible with life? But I share this with them so that they know that that is my inspiration to fight for the health of their children, of their family. Para alam nila kung saan nanggagaling yung mga ginagawa ko.
You know, kilala naman ho kayo talaga as a champion for health, women's rights, lawyer kayo, nanay kayo. All throughout the campaign, of course, came one criticism, at least if there were others also, is the fact that you have remained quiet on remarks of the president. Yun ho kasi could have possibly turned away some people to a Senator Pia Cayetano na sobrang tapang, and yet all this time, you've remained quiet. I know you've answered this, Senator. Sinabi mo, hindi ka naman spokesperson ng Pangulo. But still, did that pose as a challenge for you during the campaign? Did you think that possibly baka maging mahirapan ka dahil sa ganon, dahil sa pananahimik mo?
Hindi. Let me correct that, no? Hindi ako nananahimik. That's why the campaign gives me the opportunity to talk about my work. Kasi, bakit ba ako naging senador? Para ba i-critique yung presidente? Para ba i-critique lahat ng member ng cabinets? Hindi ko, if you look at the way I've conducted myself in the 12 years that I was in the Senate, my job is my legislative work. I can count literally on my hands, 24 lang naman kami. So, kaya yan. Pati paan na rin siguro. Kung ilan kaming academic ang approach namin sa trabaho, yung trabaho talaga. So, and there's a lot to critique out there. There's a lot. Because we want a better country. We want a better system. So, I've chosen na yung focus ko is in the legislative work. And pinauulit-ulit ko na, sige, hanapan niyo ako ng katapat who does my work as well as me. Because join the bandwagon. Hindi ko sinasabing sinusolo ko to. Join me and make legislation that will change the Philippines.
Does that mean,
that's my focus.
Does it mean that if there was a president that you are not a part, let's say hindi po kayo member ng administration, opposition kayo, hindi mo gusto yung Pangulo, pero merong mga remarks on women, does that mean you're not going to say anything as well?
Example.
Okay.
Bigyan kita ng example. And love ko din siya, si Pinoy. Smoker siya, di ba? Oh. Ang daming incident noon, smoking related. Did you hear me going on air and saying, ay nako. Hindi, kasi
Pangulo,
hindi nga.
dapat di ka manigarilyo, ganon.
Ang sa akin, if you're going to critique your principal, you do it at the right place at the right time. I think I mentioned this to you, di ba, na pagka ikaw, may boss ka, sasabihin mo sa boss mo na ganito yung issue natin. And I've had numerous discussions with the president.
Yeah, you said that, no?
During the campaign, the president said, nako, pag nandyan si Pia, di ako makasalita kasi pinapagalitan ako. So what else do people expect from me? I will do my work. I will serve the Filipinos. I will fight for the laws that will make lives better for women. That is my job.
And that is something we heard the president say as well. And we're going to play that statement of the president maybe just a little later on. I do remember that, Senator, we don't have that right now, that the senator said the president rather said na pag nandyan si Senator Pia at si Inday Sara.
Yeah, he mentioned
dalawa yung sinabi niya.
Sabi niya, something like parang si Inday Sara, pinapagalitan ako, something like that.
So hindi daw siya nagjo-joke pag nandun kayo?
I throw that back to people who ask, you know, what do I do in situations like this? The president knows. And I'd like to believe that I inspire him to be a better person. We all have room for improvement, right?
Yeah. So dapat siguro kasama mo si Pangulo all the time.
Para hindi na ako gagawa ng mga batas ko.
All right. That was syempre, ibinato sa iyo yun, and you've answered that time and time again. I want to talk about now the incoming 18th Congress, which you'll be a part of. Sa 17th Congress ho kasi, they already met Monday, and they laid out their, agenda for the next nine days left ata ho. There's three things that I wish you could comment on. Yung kanilang priorities would be the Public Services Act, amendments to that, the anti-terror bill, and the Endo bill. Any thoughts on these three priorities?
Ang masasabi ko lang is, hindi ako attuned dun sa nangyayari sa Senate because I'm still in the House of Representatives, di ba? So, syempre, yung focus ko is kung saan ako. And yung mga agenda na gusto kong ma-achieve, whatever I wanted to achieve, I have done in the House of Representatives. So, I have no say on what's going on in the Senate.
Okay.
Only to the extent, and my staff is monitoring, if we still have bills in the House that are not between the Senate and the House, hindi mabaycam, hindi matapos, then I will continue that in the Senate.
But do you know that already now? Which ones? Or you're still doing...
the key bills that I have been really pushing for, kasi when you hear me talk about like even on social media, if I talk about something, believe me, I worked on that. Tuldok nun, kama doon, sinulat ko yon, okay? There are others I monitor because I support it lang naman. And minsan kung kailangan ng tulong, they'll ask me for help. So most of my agenda is out there. The one lang na nabitin, and it's because we did not have a Secretary of Social Welfare, is the consolidated bill on adoption. It's a codification of the adoption and foster care.
Sayang yun, ano? A lot of people, there will be a number of people who will be interested on that. But going back to Congress, bills that were passed into law, expanded maternity leave. We talked about that. HIV/AIDS policy support and the Mental Health Act. I'm sure you're
Those were all bills that I actually either conducted hearings on or filed and worked on when I was still in the Senate, just like maternity leave. So when it got to the House, there were other committees that handled it, but I was in the background helping push it pa rin.
So, pagpasok niyo po sa Senate sa 18th Congress, what would be your priority legislation?
I have the adoption. I'm going to push through with
Can
that.
you tell us briefly what it's all about?
One major change that we're introducing in the adoption law as of today is that where we want to shift it from judicial to administrative. I'll give you an example.
Ibig sabihin?
Yeah. So I'm an adoptive parent, no? And thankfully, dumaan din ako sa butas ng korayom. I did not do any shortcuts. I had to go through, interesting story. When I foster cared my son, I couldn't adopt him right away because I was still married, legally married, but separated for a long time. And under the law, you have to adopt jointly, husband and wife, or a single person can. But I was not a single person.
Correct, because you're legally married.
I was a foster care parent for a long time. And then when I got an annulment, that is how I was able to push through with the adoption. So dikit-dikit yung mga issues na to. But on that note, I realized, because I met a lot of adoptive parents also, and some of them have difficulties with judges, which I found extremely unreasonable. For example, a couple wherein the woman was previously married, so annulled na siya, happily married now to her second husband, but she had kids, and for some reason, the judge was giving them a hard time about adopting. This is a loving, stable family, financially very stable, and they wanted to adopt. The child was already living with them. It's just the finalization of the papers, and the judge was like, bakit? May problema ba kayo? Bakit gusto niyo mag-adopt? Yung talagang...
Dahil may mga anak na sila.
Dahil may anak na yung girl.
No, I know. Kina-question ba ng
how
judge?
difficult is it to understand that this couple want their own child to add to the family? Yeah. Paulit-ulit and more than that. So anyway, and plus it really is delayed because the judges have they have children who are abused to deal with, right? So one of the solutions is administrative.
Okay. So mapapadali sana ang pag-adopt ng sa mga...
The process will be
the process will actually be
But
faster.
it will also be conducted by a board. So it's not our objective na, mabilis lang, hindi masuscrutinize na maayos.
Absolutely.
Because we want to fight against the trafficking and all that.
Okay, I'm going to run by this real quickly. Divorce.
That's another thing that took about a year of my time in the House of Representatives. I worked on 3 versions of divorce, and so we have now the absolute divorce, which has different grounds. We have the ones that apply to Filipinos who marry foreigners, because the foreigner can divorce them. And under our existing family code, they can then get a divorce once they're divorced. But there were so many nuances that it wasn't happening.
Yeah.
I met so many who they couldn't get the divorce. Okay, that's the second. And the third is, if you get a church annulment, then automatic, you just submit that to the court, and it's as good as... kasi...
Sometimes you question it. You get a church annulment, why do you still need the other process? Dapat tapos na yun, di ba?
Yeah, but technically, well, it's like when you get married, right? Like, it's one process lang yun, right? So parang we're doing the same thing, one process na lang.
Okay.
Yeah, so that passed in the House. I got that done. And again, with all due respect to those who are Catholics, Christians, whatever your religion is, I respect that. This is for people who need divorce. These are for women who I've heard all the stories. We went to Hong Kong, women who've been battered and they had to leave their families. Their husbands are living with another woman, sometimes more than one woman, and they still send money back to their husband because it is their legal duty.
Okay, same-sex marriage.
Same-sex marriage, the House tackled the SOGI bill, not the same-sex marriage.
Yeah.
So I am for the SOGI bill. On the same-sex, I have no inherent issue with it. It's just something that needs to be discussed because there's still timing lang yan. There's a lot of resistance, there's a lot of questions, there's a lot of concerns. So we need to discuss this further.
Death penalty.
Death penalty. I do not have a short answer for that because the shortest I can give you is this. I am not pro-death per se, but I was listed in, there was this, that's why I don't like yes and no questions because I need to explain, right? I need people, I need my children who are listening to me, the friends of my children, my friends to understand where my vote is coming from. When we had this lengthy caucus in the House of Representatives, my colleagues who had been former mayors, former governors, each one gave very tearful stories about cases where, let's say, a woman who was pregnant with her 7-year-old child was raped in front of her child. So they're like, death penalty dapat yun. And then somebody else will say, well, what about this case where a teenager was abducted, kidnapped, and then beaten to death by somebody under drugs? O, sama din yan. Next thing you know, we had this long list. And they were all based on stories that these members of Congress were told by their constituents. And so I stood up and I was like, guys, I'm also emotionally affected by these stories. But do we really want to then have this system where everything ends up in a death penalty? Plus, some of them that were so bad. In fact, at some point, somebody recommended that all of those are death right away, not even a range. So my role there was to say, wait, let's take a step back and ask ourselves, what do we want for our society? I mean, do we have some area here to redeem people, to give? So we were able to cut that short. So that's my point. So that was my role there, and we were able to bring it down to drug-related crimes. Because all of those crimes that they talked about, the worst were really when people were under the influence of drugs.
And lastly, of course, your family, your brother, your sister-in-law, your other brother, Alino, all in politics. Anti-dynasty bill laws. Would you ever support that? Kasi apat na kayo.
Yeah. My job, and every time there's an issue, my job is to have an open mind. So you will never, well, I hope, let's never say never. I always try, even though it's something that I'm against, I'm like, okay, it's my job to have an open mind. I'm sure you've read the stories and heard the reports about the algorithms of Facebook. It keeps feeding you the information you like. It's the same thing with books you read, magazine articles. You will only choose to focus on what you believe in, on what you were raised to believe. So if I follow that, then I'm dictating to the people what I believe is true only. And that's not right. Even though people believe me because I'm a woman's advocate, well, I'm also an education advocate. I'm also an advocate for PWD, so educate me. So on that note, I believe that people should be judged for their capacity for the role that they are going to enter. And I will forever be proud of the fact that I was born of a father who served his country well, and it so happened that my brothers are equally inspired. In fact, they were more inspired than me because 2 out of my 3 brothers entered politics before me. So what can I do if we're all inspired to serve? Do we love this job? No, it's a pain in the butt a lot of times because you get unnecessarily or unfairly criticized. But you do it because you're called to do it, you know, like after I pass the maternity leave, I'm like, so sige, you still want to criticize me? Go ahead, criticize me. But you know what? Millions of Filipinas will benefit from 105 maternity. If you want to be sour about 1 or 2 things that I didn't do greatly, no problem with me.
You accept that already.
Let me just continue doing the work for people who need it and recognize.
So I take it that you really just keep an open mind on a lot of things, and you really need to study them instead of just giving a yes.
That is my policy. That is my principle. But on that note, I'm proudly related to my brothers and my sister-in-law who will serve the country. And as I say, watch my brother Lino serve Taguig well. I am so proud of how he will bring to the next level pa. Compared to the great foundation that my sister-in-law, Mayor Lani, brought to Taguig.
Is this a Cayetano dynasty? Would you call it that?
Well, how do you define dynasty? A dynasty is a word that I learned when I was in college from families that pass on leadership roles because of blood. We were elected. It was never passed on to us. It is an election that we each have to win every single time. Every single time you have to prove to the people that you are worthy to serve them. And every time election is over, they can take you out anytime. So you can call it whatever it is, but it is the Cayetano family serving the Filipino people. Call it whatever it is, judge us for the work that we do.
Thank you to senatorial candidate and senator apparent and senator.
Hopefully today, yung proclamation.
Yeah, it should happen today, but just the same, you're number 4.
Thank you.
That is with certainty. Congratulations. And I do wish we can speak again on the bills that are very important that you plan to push forward. Maraming salamat kay Senator-elect to be proclaimed. Pia, you know, we have to be very here, yung accurate about it. Maraming salamat po sa inyo, Senator. Anyway, former Senator ka naman kaya Senator, Congresswoman Pia Cayetano. Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Pinky Webb. You're watching CNN Philippines.